All
Hi,
right.
Cameron.
Hi, Kareen. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
One day at a time, one moment at a time.
Oh man, I'm there with you. I've been thinking about this podcast a lot lately and how like excited I am about it. And I'm like really happy to be on here today because I just feel, I don't know if anybody else is as into our conversations as we are, but I love our conversations. I think it's a service to the world to record them so people can hear them. So I have good feelings about it. And I think we're into the tens of listeners now. So
All right.
yeah, we're really on up. So our biggest,
Maybe they
I
are.
have to say that our biggest episode so far is the one where it's titled Jesus, Aliens, and Joe Dispenza. So I was
I'm
like,
not
maybe
surprised.
I should like, I was like, it's like got like quadruple what everything else has. So I'm like, maybe I should just put Joe Dispenza's name in every title and then we'll just keep like riding his fame.
Or, oh, yeah. Okay. I was thinking maybe it was the aliens and Jesus that people would be
It might be the
interested.
triple
Yes.
effect.
The trifecta.
Yeah. I just assumed it was Joe Dispenza, but I mean, it's quite a topic, Jesus, aliens, and Joe Dispenza. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what's been going on with you?
Oh, well, I I wonder if this is spring fever. That's a thing, right? Like I'm feeling
I think that means you're super horny.
that might be possible. And I'm not sure we'll get into that on this episode.
Save that for the future.
But I have this, I feel like the emotions or the energies are just really intense right now. But after I dropped my daughter off with the sitter, I was just driving home feeling this like buzz, like a low grade buzz, but it felt like, it's like, this is weird because it feels really intense, but it also is super not intense. It's very subtle. It's a very intense subtlety or a subtle intensity. I don't know. And it's just like so much potential energy. And I think it has to do with the work that I'm doing in myself, in my life. And I'm like awakening all this dormant energy that has just been at the ends of the earth for years now, where it's like I just kept, draining all of my energy out, pushing all this energy out of my body and having no energy in my field to draw from. And now I'm gathering all this energy up, and it's I don't know, maybe this is like the Kundalini thing. I've never done Kundalini yoga, but the idea of like awakening the serpent at the base of the spine, awakening that energy, and it's like rising, and I feel that. And it feels like I'm doing all this work and I'm changing so many things. And Joe Dispenza talks about how, once you start to make these energetic changes, you should start to see evidence in your physical reality. And I mean, the last week, that's what's been happening. It's like synchronicity left and right, big things. I mean, small things, but big things in terms of stuff I've had energy on for a long time is all of a sudden appearing, and yet at the same time, it feels like nothing's happening. I feel very much in this place of like, I have all this energy and I'm ready for life to just like start happening, and it's still just like the mundanity, like one day at a time, take the kid to the sitter, do the thing, cook the food, and it's like, when does this feel like my life is like turned on, like, and happening, and I realized that it's sort of connected to, I go to this place of seeing where I am now and where the things that are happening now began. So like, I'll look back in the past and say, oh, well, this is connected to that thing that started this many months ago or this many months ago. And then I'll look back and I'll say, if I had just latched onto it then and worked on it then, I would already be, wherever I want to be now, right now, instead of beginning now. I feel like I just I'm like at the beginning, and I'm at the beginning, and I'm at the beginning, and I'm totally not and I feel like I totally am. And so I was I was going to look up how to say his name. Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how to say his name. That guy.
It's Tolle. That's what I always
Okay.
say.
Okay. Well, him. So I was reading The Power of Now last night or this morning, and he had just what he was saying about the holding the awareness of the inner body and how we, like when we are connected with our inner body, the outside world becomes less, like we're not in the past, we're not in the future, we're just here in this present moment. And there's this stillness and there's this like vitality and youthfulness, and like that's where the possibility is, right? So driving home, I was trying to just like tune into that, and as soon as I did, I got connected to that, knowing that like it's all good, time doesn't exist, like there is plenty of time. I keep getting this message, there's plenty of time, there's plenty of time, there's plenty of time, but all my friends are having babies. Like, this is not there. So I'm like, okay, time. I got to just let go of time. But it's that buzz of energy that like, okay, all the energy is here. All the potential is here. I want it all to just manifest right now. But I also know that if I were ready for it, it would be manifesting right now.
Or it is manifesting. It's just not physical. Like it's not
right.
Physical. I think that sometimes we feel it's happening, but you can't fully see it. So it's like, where the heck is it?
Yes, that is a good way of describing it. Yeah, I feel it. It is happening, but it's not experiential enough for me at this moment. And it's like, in a matter of 2 months, like things will change. Somebody's knocking on my door. Okay. She just ran off.
Do you think that I never know what to do with that energy of like, there's like what you're saying, like there's all this energy that you have, but like you can't just like get it out. And so, sorry for everybody listening, I'm eating popcorn. You'll find out in just a minute, I'm sure, but why. But I always wonder if my job in that moment is to kind of like let the energy seep out and like hold it, like reserve it, or is it just to get the energy out? So like a lot of times I'm like, I'm going to just go do some cardio, like a high intensity cardio workout or something to like get that energy out of my body, because it gets a little overwhelming to carry all the energy. But then I'm like, well, am I just wasting this on, stupid cardio when I should be like using it for a creative project or something else? Yeah. Like, how do you manage holding on to that, having that energy? Like,
well, it feels like it's not necessarily like the go out and work it out of my body kind of energy. It's, well, I was thinking that. I was like, oh, maybe this is like kids. This is how kids experience life. This like buzz of energy of like, life is so exciting. Because I was remembering being a kid, and I really think that that's what it is. Like I've been so shut down and turned off for so long, and that feeling of like just the excitement of for life, just that life just is, and it's unfolding and it's exciting and what's going to happen. And I think I used to live in that state a lot more. And I was very, not maybe moody, but, swinging on the pendulum of emotions, like really excited and nervous and whatever. But, so I guess, it's that sort of feeling of just excitement about the possibilities. And so it feels more like, yeah, it's definitely not energy that I just want to go dump on something. It feels like it's the energy that's being cultivated. So it's sort of just riding the wave of it, like just being with it, recognizing it, and recognizing that there's really, like, there's nothing that I can do about it per se. Like all I can do really is just keep going, like keep doing the work, keep taking the steps that I'm taking in the physical realm of, just the various projects or whatever that I'm doing. Like keep on keeping on, you know, keep going with all the things, and then keep working through the energy, like in my meditations and stuff. So, or just sitting outside in the sun. I think I am planning on working on a hide later this afternoon, and because it's just outrageously gorgeous here today. And so something like that, where I will be doing something to move along towards the future that I'm seeking, because I got to get this hide out of my freezer, you know? So like, I will be like working on something to move towards my goal, but also being outside and being supported by the elements.
I also was going to ask you if you think that this, if you think that this energy like that you're cultivating, how much that has to do with like the actual practice of meditation. Because for me, I'm finding that you know, like in the morning right now, it's really hard for me to just like have any energy in the morning. I don't want to meditate, but I know that when I sit down and do it, it just makes me feel really energized whenever I'm done. So I'm wondering if you get that, if you have that experience too, of feeling energized after you meditate, and if you think that that's connected to that cultivating energy thing.
I definitely do. I do a series of, I do different, I don't know, I usually do 3 meditations a day, and there's like a short one in the morning, and then I'll do like the work meditation at night, and then the nighttime one. And then I also do this breathing practice in the morning. I've like combined the Wim Hof breathing with Joe Dispenza breathing and made my own thing that I like. Holy cow, this is so awesome. But the meditation is really helpful for getting me clear on what my energy is, and then getting clear on what I want my energy to be, and then shifting into that, or like reconnecting with it, so that going into the day, I'm like, yeah, that's my little life raft, you know. But I have noticed that I really think the breathing for me is huge. I've been doing the Wim Hof breathing for like 1.5 years now, and only in the last month or 2, maybe, I added in the Joe Dispenza breathing into that practice. Because Joe Dispenza has this, I guess it's kind of, I don't know if it's a Kundalini like breath, but you're drawing the energy up from your lower centers. And like this morning doing that, I had such a clear energetic shift. I was totally in like lower energy center, lower vibration, anxiety, shame, nervousness, whatever, all those things. And I could feel it in my second chakra. And then as I pulled the energy up, there was this like pop, and the energy is just sort of released into my brain. Because I've really started to be able to feel the energy moving up my spine and into my brain. And I can like feel my brain like energized, which feels so cool. So I think, I mean, the breathing for me is a really big piece of it. And I find when I do the breathing before meditation, I feel like the meditation is more powerful and more, it has more energy in it.
Yeah.
So combination.
Yeah. I am really feeling like I am living in my lower chakras right now. It's been pretty interesting. I think that we talked about this the last time we talked, that like the month before that, I was feeling just things were just, my daughter and I were having some like disagreements and just not getting along. And I don't know, there was just like weird energy. And it just keeps continuing to go on. But it's evolved and it's different, but it's really weird. And so for those of you listening, I'm pregnant right now. And so I don't know, I think I'm like 10 weeks or something. I have no idea, honestly, how pregnant I am, but I'm somewhere in the beginning. And I started noticing all of this happen when I knew I was pregnant. That was one way that I knew I was pregnant, is because I can just feel this the stuff in my first and second chakra. And the first thing is that I can't wear skirts right now, or, I have to wear like underwear, which I normally am not an underwear wearer, but I have to because it feels like my vagina is gaping open, like that lower chakra. And I can feel like air, like movement of energy coming out or going in. Like I can feel it. And I know that it's a chakra thing because I felt this before with like my heart chakra. And then I felt it in like my spinal column. It's like this whole, the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna channels. So I know it's like energy moving in and out, right? But it's kind of like, it makes me feel really vulnerable, which is a totally different kind of vulnerability than I felt with my daughter when I was pregnant with her. Like I just couldn't even go out in public because I felt like so unprotected energetically. And I don't feel like that now, but I definitely cannot wear skirts. And then with my second chakra, I'm feeling just, that's like the unconscious, right? So anytime, and it's connected to our third eye. So anytime I close my eyes and like focus on my third eye, it's just all of this like shit that like I had in my mind when I was, a teenager or in my early 20s, like stuff I've worked through, right? But it's like appearing before me like a movie playing. And so meditation is really challenging for me right now. And like, I've just been really just trying to focus on keeping my head in the right, like keeping my mind clear and keeping my mind focused on what I wanted to be focused on. And I kind of came to a head last week. I just got really super emotional, and I'm, since I was pregnant with my daughter 4 years ago, I don't hardly ever cry anymore. And I used to cry like every single day. So something happened during that time where I never really cry. It's not like I'm repressing it. It's just not there. But last week, man, I had a good cry. I was like crying all day last Thursday. And so I thought, well, I was actually like went and had Sam, like stopped him from doing his work. And I made him let me sit on his lap, and I just cried in his lap, and like, he doesn't know what to do. He's just like, okay, like, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm just like crying about all of this stuff. So I went and listened to Ann Ortley's Weekly Weather because I hadn't been listening to it. And of course it was all like Pluto basically is like totally watery, emotional planet. And I have a lot of Pluto in my birth chart or whatever. So it was all that stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I feel better. And that made me feel better. And I just realized I needed to, pull it together. But it's been such a challenging time because it's not just me that's being affected. My whole family is going through their own things. Like my daughter's going through whatever she's going through, and I'm just trying to like not murder her and just like hold space for her to be whatever she's becoming. And I just think that it's just this energy shifting. There's a new energy coming in that she's excited about. Like she wants to have a baby in the house, but I'm sure that that's also weird. Like, so we had gotten to like a hour-long thing yesterday where she didn't want her dad and I to touch each other. So she like threw a big fit and was like throwing this puzzle across the room. And it was kind of hilarious. So I really couldn't take it seriously. But I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to send you to your room. So you just need to go upstairs, take some deep breaths, and then come back down whenever you're calm or whatever. She was up there. I was laughing hysterically because she's up there. She's like, I am not going to take deep breaths. I do not want to be in this room. I don't want to be upstairs. I don't want to be in this house. I don't want to be outside. I don't want to be anywhere on this property. I was like, okay. I was like, all you have to do is take some deep breaths and calm yourself down, and you are welcome to come down. And I was really proud of myself because I didn't get all pissed off about it. Like Sam was starting to melt down because he was feeling guilty because she was like, I need my Papa. Papa, come help me. And he's like always the rescuer, and I was like, you're not saving her right now. And so I was just trying to get her to calm herself down. And I was like talking to her the whole time. And finally, like an hour later, she calms herself down and she comes down and she's like totally fine. But yeah, so but then like I was calm the whole time. We worked through the whole thing. And then after it was over, I was like, you all have to leave this house because I'm going to like really start like thrashing on you. It was like later, it was just like, I was perfectly calm. And then afterwards, then I started thinking about the situation, and I was like, okay, this situation is happening because her dad rescues her all the time. And I'm the only disciplinarian, it's the whole dynamic. Like I'm the disciplinarian. He rescues her because he feels guilty. He was feeling guilty because he had gotten on to her earlier in the day, which had nothing to do with that moment. the reason it happened is because she doesn't want her dad and I to touch each other. And it's like, that's not acceptable. You know, like that just, it can't go on. So yeah, it was this whole big thing. But anyway, so we're all going through all this stuff. And then, you know, her dad's going through his own, I don't know, dark night of the soul or whatever you want to call it. So it's been really interesting because I'm like, you know, I'm the mother. It's my job to like hold it all together basically. And I also am totally willing to let people fall apart. Like I'm not going to like, not doing Sam's work for him. I'm not going to, you know, like, I don't want to like end my daughter's suffering and like never to have her suffer or whatever, you know, but I do need to maintain some sort of harmony in this atmosphere. And it's hard for me because I'm in my lower chakras most of the time, just like dealing with my own shit. That's like, I don't know if it's this baby kicking stuff up or whatever, like being down there. And I'm like, what are you doing down there? Because when I was pregnant with Walela, I was so happy, like happier than I've ever been. And like laughing, I would just like lay in bed and giggle. I wasn't reading or watching movies. I couldn't do anything. I was so sick. All I could do is lay in bed and stare at the ceiling or sleep. And I would just giggle. And I was so happy to do that for like the whole 9 months of my pregnancy. I did that. And now like it's a totally different experience of just like having all these weird thoughts and emotions and old stuff coming up. So I'm like, what is this kid going to be like? Like, and so I just keep having in my mind, like I have to not have these thoughts because I don't want to like imprint my child with these thoughts. Plus I'm going through this whole like, you know, postpartum training thing when we talk a lot about birth and like pre and perinatal psychology and like how the moment you're conceived, it like affects your child. And like, so it's all this intense stuff of like, I don't want to mess this kid up. But I also am like, well, is it this kid's like stirring stuff up down there? Like I'm obviously supposed to look at this stuff. So I'm navigating this whole really weird world. And yeah, I don't really know. I also am just kind of like in a fog all the time. I just like bumble around the house, like, you know, in my own little world. And it's really a weird time. And I've been really emotional about the external world, like all the weird stuff that's happening in the world that I don't like watch the news or anything. And I'm not really getting on the internet at all to look at stuff, but I just feel like stuff's weird out there. And so I can't imagine what mothers were going through last year when it was like serious hardcore lockdown. I mean, I know it still is in some places, but like when it was just like in the beginning and they were pregnant and oh my God, I can't even imagine. Yeah. So life is really weird for me right now. I was like, I don't even know. I can't really like bitch about it because nothing's bad. And I get that things are just happening and this is part of it, but I'm kind of, you know, I think I say this all the time and I'm always feel like I'm like this car up on two wheels, like turning this corner and all I'm trying to do is keep the four wheels on the ground. And, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like, maybe I should just let everything fall apart and just, you know, whatever. I mean, I just keep telling myself, if I don't live in this house, it's okay. If I don't live in Ohio, it's wherever I'm at, it's just going to be fine. I'm going to have this baby, whether I want to or not. And wherever that happens, whatever happens, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to be okay with whatever happens. So trying to get there with being okay with whatever happens. I'm not really good at that. So I'm trying.
Wow. There's a lot in that.
Yeah.
I was just, you saying the thing about the two wheels, so definitely there's some universal something happening right now, because yesterday for us was super intense for a lot of the day. And I totally hear you about sort of the delayed response where you're like, I've got it. I'm going to keep it together. I'm going to choose who I'm going to be in this interaction and let her do her thing. And then it percolates up like hours later. Yeah, I had a sort of similar experience yesterday. And also it inspired a lot of thoughts or different ways of experiencing situations like this or looking at it for the future. Because part of what I've realized is Okay, I'll try to organize my thoughts because there's so many things in response to what you said. Um, okay, to start with the piece about, what you're learning in the postpartum course and what we know now about, when the baby's conceived and all the energetics and the thoughts and all that stuff. And um, my thought was, yeah, that's true. And it's a co-creation, right? So it's not you, it's not the baby, it's both of you. And it's everything else. It's not just
every
like a
planet, the entire
right.
universe.
Right. It's the quantum field. Like it's a co-creation between you and source, and you're all it. So there's that. But then the reality that everything that you experience is part of that co-creation. And so if you're in it and you're thinking all these thoughts, but you're processing through them and you're releasing them, then you're releasing them and the baby experiences the release. And, it's like all of that. So all the healing, like, it's not like nobody is doomed to be fucked up for the rest of their existence,
Right,
and like,
right.
and I have so latched on to that for so much of my life that I just am because X, Y, or Z. Um, and just realizing, like, learning through all the work that I'm doing now, that's just not the case. And we are all at choice in every single moment. And I know a lot of people say that it sounds like a new agey thing, but like the reality is that in this present moment, the quantum field is the only reality. And so, like, which is just all possibilities. And so there's always the potential for radical transformation.
Yeah, healing is always accessible. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And so I was experiencing all of this stuff. Like, I've at least finally honed in that for whatever reason, I know most women get PMS, but I get ovulation, whatever. I'm like, which also makes me think, like, maybe it's my body being like, why is there not a baby in here right now?
I'm tired of ovulating, damn it.
I don't know. But anyway, so I definitely, like, right at ovulation, and like, I guess that, that week leading up to bleeding, because I don't know, for me, it's a week. um, it's just, everything is just a little bit like kind of tense, holding my breath in, just like, okay, just get through it one day at a time, one moment at a time, breath at a time. And I just realized that that's part of what was going on yesterday. Like, I couldn't shift my state. I couldn't get locked into the energy of my future as easily as I can, like, 3 weeks out of the month. And what it does is it triggers all of those thoughts about the permanence of my fucked upness and my daughter's fucked upness, and all the ways, all the mistakes that I've made, all the wrong choices, all the blah, 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 all of that stuff. And how I knew better and I should have done better, and all of those things. And so I look at, so for me, it's like such work to say, okay, what is happening right now? What is this experience? Eckhart Tolle talks about how, like, yeah, it's hard to deal with the past and it's hard to deal with the future, but you can always deal with this moment. And what happens in this moment is that you're living in the past. So I'm drawing from all of my thoughts about why she is doing this in this way right now. And it always comes back to blame and shame and guilt and regret and woulda, coulda, shouldas and wishes, and just a longing to be able to go back and rewrite history. And the thing is that I can rewrite history, but I can only do it right in this moment.
Yeah.
And so the possibility does actually exist for me to rewrite the past, but I have to reframe or come to a different understanding and a different presence with how that happens. And so I'm having more and more moments of that awareness, like every time she erupts or something happens, and I'm like, okay, no, in this moment, this pattern, we're going to work on it right here, right now, so that it's as if the past didn't happen, and going forward, the future can be different. But yesterday was really, really, really hard. And I feel like I came to some good, some better places with the challenging experiences and interactions with her, like better awarenesses in myself. And I also realized, like, you know, this Joe Dispenza evening meditation is so helpful because it's partly to review the day and say, like, just look at it, see what you did, what could you have done better, what would you do next time, what would be more in alignment with your future. And then the other part of it is like, look back and what do you love about yourself? Celebrate what you did well. And it's on days like yesterday where my sort of baseline state of being and feeling about myself is like, I feel like shit about myself. I feel like I'm a piece of shit and, you know, I don't deserve to be a mother. And so when that is the baseline thought, it's really hard for me to even recognize things that I love about myself and things that I did well, because it's like, it's not like it's all neutral. And then I did some things that I wish I hadn't done like that, or I spoke in, you know, in ways that were not in alignment with, you know, my loving self. And then I had other things that were in alignment. It's like, you know, you can look at the world through rose colored glasses, or you can look at the world through shit colored glasses.
Yeah.
And so I was, even though I had some moments that were like, wow, you know, that was a really shitty experience with her. And that she was being like, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you what that was like, you know, like all the things that she was doing and stuff. And I managed to get through it and like, and be more in alignment with who I want to be. And it was super, super hard. It was super triggering. And so, you know, I could throw the baby out with the bathwater, or I could recognize that, like, yeah, it sucks. And yeah, I felt shitty about myself that it was happening, because I was blaming myself that it was happening because of how I'd been in the past with her, you know, or the dynamics that I'd created or whatever that was. But like, the fact of the matter is that I am in each moment making steps towards my future. And I had, like, you're talking about, you're not going to save people. What it was making me think was that I had a thought around this whole experience yesterday where, well, it made me think of my aunt, actually, because she got this dog years ago, and it was just this like super energetic, kind of wild, crazy dog. She was like, yeah, I just, you know, kind of let her run wild. And then eventually she got it out of her system and she calmed down. And it took like 3 months, but she would be like running up and down the stairs and all over the house, you know, and it was just, she just let it run its course. And I've thought about that for years with my daughter. And it always occurs to me that, like, maybe that's the option. And I think there's like a dance here with it, because that was one piece that I realized, like, she just needs to have space to expand and like let this energy out in some way, right? She needs to have her space to feel like she can be in her own energetic space. And all of the thoughts that I have about her that are like based on, well, I have my judgments, and I have my assumptions or assessments about why she behaves certain ways, and my theories, you know. And what I realized is, like, I also don't like who she is sometimes. Like, I don't like how she behaves, and how entitled she is, or how she behaves in certain ways. And it's not that there's anything wrong with her. And yes, maybe it's based on the past and all that stuff, but really what it is like, I just need to make different choices that deal with these things now. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm being super clear, but
as opposed to like, she's this way because I did all of these things all fucked up. So like, now you have to deal with all of that. Like, just dealing with it, like, okay, right now she's acting entitled, and like dealing with that situation. Like, this moment she's being entitled and I don't like it. So let's deal with this moment instead of unpacking all the shit that comes up. Yeah.
And so what I realized was, my chiropractor here, she has interesting little like inspirational things on her wall sometimes. And the last one, it was all these things, it was like 10 parenting things or something. And one of them was, don't ever let your kids do something that makes you dislike them.
I was just going to say that because that's from Jordan Peterson's book. He has 12 rules for life. And I opened
Oh,
it up
that's
to
what it
that
was.
page. Yeah. And it says that. And I'm like, that's kind of my parenting strategy. Like I tell my mom all the time, like, I don't let her do that stuff because I don't want to hang out with somebody who watches TV or somebody who like,
Mm.
plays with stupid toys. Like I don't like those stupid pink fluffy stuffed animals. I don't want to hang out with somebody that hangs out with those.
Yeah. Well, I realized, I've parented so much from like a philosophical place of the ideals of the way I think things should be, which has merit in terms of striving for an ideal, that is more in alignment with like your values and stuff. But functionally, it it ends up being a little bit like top down. Like it's not like boots on the ground. Like what does that look like in parenting? It's like a controlling. Like I've been. It's given me an excuse to be as controlling as I am, or I've used it, somehow in that way. But part of what I realized in the whole thing yesterday, it's like who the hell who the hell does she think she is that she can treat me like this? Because this is completely unacceptable. And like, I can't even, there's nothing I can do in this moment to get it to stop. Like, and I get that it's, it's stuff coming out that I think she's releasing and healing too, which I'm hoping. But it's like, it's just an okay. And I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live in a house like this. I want to be in love with my life. And I'm not in love with my life living in a house with a child who treats me like this. And so, so this morning, and I get like, all these ideas, like kids should play until they're 7 and like be free and blah, blah, blah. And I want her to be involved in stuff. And she does help with things around the house to an extent, but, I still sort of get stuck in that philosophical thing of like, this is how it should be. So I should do this. It's like, no, actually I want to have a person in this house who is like, recognizes that we're a family and we,
You gotta
need
pull your weight. Like everybody has to
yeah,
help.
right.
Yeah.
And I look like when I was a kid, it was totally like, we didn't feel the family glue. Like we weren't all a unit, like working towards a common goal. And we had chores, but we resented them. And I didn't want to clean the bathroom. And I didn't feel like the inspiration to just unload the dishwasher because I hated doing it. And it wasn't like, oh, well, this is our house and we're all in this together and the dishwasher needs to be emptied. So I'm going to do it. And mom doesn't have to ask. Or if she does, I'm just going to do it because it's not her job.
Yeah.
And that idea that like, it's not all my job. And so this morning, I don't remember how this started. We had made breakfast together yesterday and she like did really well and she was excited about it. And so I was like, let's do that again today. And she was like, no, I'm playing, blah, 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 this whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I think we should make breakfast together. And realizing to not put responsibility on her, but to just bring her and say like, we're going to make breakfast together. And then we're going to clean up the dishes and we're going to do all this stuff together.
Yeah.
And so she was like having a total fit and was like, no, I want you to make breakfast. Totally like, she's a kid and I get it. She's a kid and it's not okay. I kept thinking about the Amish. I was like, this would never fly in an Amish
Oh,
household.
hell no. Hell no.
And so she was just being like super like that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm hungry, but I can wait. I'm not going to make breakfast. So I went upstairs and I sat and I read Eckhart Tolle and I was like reading some good stuff, getting in a good space. And then eventually she called up and she goes, Mama, can we make breakfast now? I was like, sure. And so I came down and we made breakfast together and it was awesome. And she was totally like, she did all the things. She basically made breakfast and then we ate and she wanted to go bike. And I was like, well, we need to come and do the dishes. And she's like, oh yeah, but I'm going to go bike. I was like, no. She's like, oh, we're going to do the dishes. I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, okay. And so she came. It was like all she needed for me to do was just actually stand up for it, hold the line, and then and have her understand like, no, actually you're a part of this and we're in this together. So this is what we're doing. And
I think that that's a huge thing. I talk about this all the time and I talk about it with my partner's family because it definitely is a situation where, mama is, in her mid 60s and she's still trying to do everything for everybody. She's finally figuring out like she can't do that because she's unwell. But like I grew up with a single mom, and like that wasn't like, and all single moms, like every mother in my family was a single mother. So it wasn't even an option, you know, like I had to cook dinner for my family when I was in like kindergarten. So, um, and so I think about that, like with my daughter, you know, like, and I thought about it all these years, like working with kids and all this stuff. And it's like, when we don't, people don't see it. Like people see it as like, well, I had to work so hard as a kid. I don't want my kid to have to work so hard. You know, like I just want my kid to have a childhood. And it's like, yeah, I get that. And at the same time, we rob anybody, not just our kids, but anybody, we rob them of the experience of stepping up and participating and like being involved in a community. It's like, if you've, I mean, I know you've spent a lot of time in intentional communities, and I've been to some where there's no, like, nobody kind of initiates you or makes you feel welcome to, like, hey, if you cook, just cook for everybody. Or if you're going to do this, just do it for everybody. And in those places, it's always been really awkward for me. But when I've gone into communities where they're like, all right, so here's how we do it. We just all eat together. If you have something, contribute it. And it's just awkward if people don't eat together. So if you cook something, just cook enough for everybody. And like, you know, let's just everybody clean up and take care of it. So it's like more of a community feeling, like you're automatically like, okay, I know what to do. I could just step in here and just pitch in. It's like when you have like, when you have a party and you have like your girlfriends over or something, and they're like, what can I do to help? And then the hostess says, oh, nothing, I've got it all under control. But what you've just done is put a separation between yourself, instead of saying, actually, if you could just do the dishes, and if you could get this cheese plate out and cut this all up or whatever, then it's fun. Like you're all working together and everybody's doing things together, instead of like, oh no, I'm the slave here and I'm just going to wait on all of you. Like, no. And I figured that whole girl party thing out because when I was in Oklahoma living, like when we had girl parties, everybody just brought food, and it's like, you bring food and we'll have it at my house and whatever. But then when I moved here, it was like, still, I tell people like, bring snacks, bring drinks, whatever. And nobody does. And I'm like, why should I have to provide all this food? Like why aren't you bringing food? But I think it's this whole thing, like everybody's from Ohio. So they're just like, my mom did everything for me, so I don't bring anything. No,
Yep.
oh, you need to bring some food. And so I'm having a girl party on this weekend, and I'm like, told everybody, bring some food or bring some drink, because my pregnant ass is not making food for anybody else. And I don't even like to eat my own food. So you have to feed me. Like you have to bring food. But I think that it just makes everybody feel more involved. Like, you know, whether it's in your family or your community or with your friends or whatever, it just makes people feel more involved when they have a job to do, you know, like, instead of standing around. I went to this farm the other day, to these people's house down the road, and the woman is like, got 3 boys under the age of 7, and she's holding a baby on her hip, and she's trying to milk all these crazy goats that are just like running around. And in my mind, I was like, can I help you? Can I help you do something? Can I hold that baby? But like, I didn't know this woman, and she's just like, I got it all under control. And I was like, and so I ended up leaving feeling really shitty, because of like, why didn't I just force myself on her and take the baby from her, like milk a goat or something? But I didn't feel like it was my place, because she wasn't making the invitation, right? So it was like, we both had, so I just made a vow, like, next time I go over there, I'm just going to like force myself on her, and she'll just have to like accept help from me or something, because it was a crazy situation. And yeah, so yeah, it has to be reciprocal. That's reciprocity, right? It's like a natural law.
But that's the thing. I mean, what you're describing in that woman though is I mean, yeah, maybe it's in the Midwest heavily and maybe not as much other places, but I do feel like it's a common theme for women that were like, no, you know, I'm okay. I can do this. And sort of feeling, you know, if somebody helps us, then that we have somehow failed, like that. Yeah. Yeah. And then growing up, like with the moms that are doing that. I mean, that was totally my experience. Like I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Right. So I don't want to go and insert myself into somebody's life, because they've probably got it all figured out and they like it exactly how they like it. Like we're all like, you know, it's like, this is what I can manage. I've figured everything out, and this is how it works, and this is where things go, and this is who does what. And if anything comes in to disrupt that, my entire world is going to come crashing down, you know? And
because
so
my life sucks. So that's like what it is. It's like, because my life sucks. Like my mother-in-law does this when we were living there. I would put the dishes up and then she'd get all pissed because all the dishes were out of order. I was like, I just fucking put the dishes up, man. I don't know where they go. I did my best, but like she was hung up on the fact that the dishes were in the wrong place. So she had to spend a whole day to like reorganize things. Right.
yeah,
Like, but that's just because like what you're saying, like that's the only place she had any power was the kitchen.
yeah,
So like I just like went in there and yeah, I just totally took over her territory and like, in a way of trying to help, but it was like,
yeah,
and that, I mean, I don't know. I definitely think it's women everywhere, but if in general, it's women all over, but the Midwest, it's a particular kind of really ingrained,
mm-hmm.
and it was different just for me because like I said, I grew up with a single mom. So it was like she came home and shit wasn't done and it was all hell breaks loose, like what, you haven't fed your brother, what, you haven't done dishes, what, you haven't cleaned the house, like all this stuff because
Mm.
I was the only one to do it. Was just me, so
Yeah.
and my brother. So yeah, it's definitely different here for sure.
Well, and also, I mean, I guess it depends on people's upbringing, but there are, I'm always struck when I see somebody who inserts themselves effortlessly, fluidly, whatever, into another person's space or life or things. And I have two friends here who I've seen do it, and I'm like, whoa,
It's an art.
it's like you're just like at home. But it
Yeah.
was great because the next time that I went to that friend's house, I was like, I'm just making myself at home here. I clearly don't need to be like tiptoeing around. But I think some people, I wonder if it has to do also, I mean, I wonder if people who have more siblings, like have bigger families, come from bigger families, have more of a tendency towards that than people who are like the little nuclear family, 2.5 kids, and everybody has their own room and their own space and their own individuality, individual things. Like, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'm sure that plays into it because they're just more kids, like you have to help. It's like we were saying with the Amish,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that mom's like, no, there's like 19 of you, I am not doing everything for you.
yeah,
I think I've told this story before that some of our Amish friends, the mom and dad, they had like a 9-month-old baby, and I think at the time they had maybe like 10 kids or something, the oldest being like a 14 or 15-year-old girl on down to the 9-month-old. And the dad's sister in New York had a really challenging labor, and she had a stillborn baby before that, and so they wanted to go there and like support her or whatever during her postpartum and labor time. And they just left all the kids there, and like not only did they just leave all the kids there with the 9-month-old, but like they still had a business to run, which is that they sell produce, and like they have a stand at their house, and like they have other farmers like us who go and buy large quantities of produce, and they have a schedule, and they have to harvest all this stuff, wash this stuff, milk the cows, feed the animals. I mean, they run the farm. And we went there to get stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, where's your parents? And we're like, oh, they went to New York for the week or whatever. And it was just like, I was like, I mean, it amazed me. I was like, wow. And they did it, they were running a little bit behind schedule, but they like harvested everything. And, keep in mind that like their family is all
yeah,
around. So I'm sure somebody was checking in on them, but it just put me in a new level of respect for Amish kids. I mean, the work that they do is it's pretty amazing. So it's like, I can have no sympathy for these English kids anymore because these Amish kids are just like killing it in life.
yeah. And that's that's something that kind of became. I've had this awareness for maybe years on and off, but more heavily, since I moved here. And it's like, it's a gift that I can give my kid. I'm not stealing her childhood. I'm not, um, like denying her in any way. Like, oh, you can't play right now because we're going to do dishes together. Like that's actually not a a sacrifice, because what she's getting is skills, competency, confidence in herself, connection, unity, community, part of the family, like shared fate, shared, invested energy. And like, there's just so many benefits. And I remember, like, I did this, the elimination communication coach certification thing years ago. And one of the things that Andrea Olson, who has created the whole Go Diaper Free stuff, when in the course, one of the things that she said is that people, like, especially in terms of potty training, people have gotten it into their heads, and it's probably top down, it's like from the diaper industry, but they've gotten it into their heads that making their children use the toilet is somehow like damaging to them, and that like they should be given as much space and time to do things at their own pace. And like 3 years old, 4 years old is, totally normal for a kid to stop using diapers. And I don't say this with any judgment to any parent who's in that situation, but just that this idea that if we give our children tools for independence and success, that somehow that's going to harm them. And really, like, it's the total opposite, because I've spent so much of my adult life feeling like, God, I was a little shit as a kid. But I was a little shit as a kid because I was, like, felt guilty about being privileged and all this stuff. And it was like, well, because I wasn't in a house that taught me that I mattered and that I, like, was a participant and that we were all creating this family in this house together, and I don't say that with blame, but just an awareness that, I didn't like who I was because of how I was raised. And so I don't want to raise my kid to be somebody who's not going to feel good about herself because she can't help the fact that she feels entitled, or she can't help the fact that she feels like everybody should just do things for her. Like, she's going to feel, she may reach a point, if I don't support her in understanding that she has a role to play, she'll reach a point where she feels these things and doesn't know how not to feel these things. Yeah. Like, I spent so much of my life, and I'm still working through it, but I spent so much of my life feeling that, like, feeling superior, feeling separate from, feeling apart from everyone else. And I mean, the flip side was feeling like I didn't belong, but it was, the two sides were that, and that I felt like, oh, well, I don't really want to do anything. I don't really want to help. I mean, I know I'm supposed to offer, and I will offer, but I don't really want to participate. I'd rather you just do it all for me, and that was like, that sucks. Like, that's not fun to work through.
I mean, at the core of that too is like, at the core of that is really like a feeling of incompetence, because like, yes, you weren't ever given the opportunity to do that. So like, you don't even feel qualified to do that. So then you're like, well, I'm just above that. Like, I mean, I've done that myself. Like, well, I'm just not going to do that because I'm like superior to that. And like, I don't have to do that. And it is totally like a feeling of incompetence of like, well, I can't really step in here because either A, I'm not worthy, or I'm not qualified, or if I do it, somebody's going to be upset with me, or, as opposed to just looking at it like, this is helpful. And like, if somebody gets mad at you for being helpful, then like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're trying to be helpful. It is a thing. And like, I feel like this is like the whole parenting spectrum is like this, because you have like, we come from like, the Great Depression era parents, and then you go to the baby boomers and you move through this whole thing. And it like started out as like forced child labor camps, and now it's like, you do the dishes and you're equivalent to putting your child in a forced child labor camp. It's like, it's not the same thing, and so we've gone through this spectrum from the Great Depression, where like everybody had to work, and from it, like the industrialization of the world, and, these people who wanted employees. So they forced the children, they put mom to work, and they forced the kids to go to work in this whole like messed up system. And then we fast forward now, and it's like, well, I kind of think it's a part of it definitely is a protective mechanism of parents. And I kind of feel like it's parents unknowingly like fighting the system of like, no, you're not going to force my kid to be like your labor, or whatever. And but at the same time, it's like, it goes too far. And like the potty training thing, I was just reading this book for this course, and it's called, I think I talked about it before. It's called Maternity, Coming Face to Face with Our Shadow by Laura Gutman. And she's from Argentina, and she's I think either a psychologist, psychotherapist, something like that, but she works with a lot of moms and kids and does these postpartum mothering and family classes or whatever. And she talks in there about like, I totally don't agree with her whole thing on what she talks about with like potty training and stuff. And like one example that she gives though of this like potty training gone wrong is that one of her clients has like 10 kids, and all of them were still in diapers, even though the oldest one was 19 years old and the youngest one was like, 3 or something. They were all still in diapers. And what had happened is like this mom felt so guilty because they didn't have a real structure in their family of like bonding, like doing the dishes together and whatever. Like the mom was just like doing everything for these bajillion kids. And so what happened is the only way that these kids could bond together was over wearing diapers and like shitting themselves and talking about how they pooped their pants and all, it was a totally fucking disgusting. Like I was like judging hardcore. It was a really messed up story. But, and so like, the therapist, Laura Gutman, who wrote this book, she's like talking about, obviously this has gone to extreme, or whatever. But, so she like worked out this whole thing with them and got all of the kids out of diapers, but it was all basically because they didn't feel involved or bonding. Like they had no other way to bond with each other than wearing diapers. Is a very bizarre situation. And yeah, like, I mean, that's a pretty extreme example, but an example nonetheless of just like robbing people in general, our kids, whatever, of the opportunity to experience independence. And it is a fine line. I dance this line all the time with my daughter because I had to be really independent really early. And so I kind of force her to be independent really early. And sometimes I have to like pull back because I realize like, okay, I've literally said no to everything, to doing anything she just asked me to do, because I'm like, you can do it yourself. But I probably could make her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever, like whatever it is that she wants. And we had this thing the other day where she was talking to my mom on a video chat, and my mom was going to give her all these dolls. And my mom was talking about building a shelf at the top of the bedroom so that we could because they're like collector's dolls, And my daughter was like, well, you have to put the shelf down low because I want to play with them, and mama and papa aren't going to get them for me. I was just like, oh my God. And my mom was like, what does that mean? I was like, that means her dad and I have refused to help her way too much. And, it was just kind of another eye-opening moment of where I know that she can do something. So I make her do it instead of just, like I can help her sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's a really challenging balance for me because I kind of have always pushed her too far to the independence thing or whatever. I don't know. I don't know that I've struck a healthy balance at all, but I work really hard at doing that. And I'm really trying to not be that way and not be like the no mom all the time, but also, yeah, not have like an entitled kid that's like, because it's really gratifying when I see her go into the fridge and just like get everything out and make herself like a snack plate. I'm like, that's so cool. Like, you're just like, yeah, that's awesome. And she like makes a well-balanced meal, and it's like this whole great thing. And, but if she only does that like once a month, it's fine. I'll have to like, well, you've done it once, you have to do it forever.
That is the trap that I fell into early on. I was like, I know that you can do this. I've seen you do it. Why are you making me do it for you? And forgetting that learning is not linear, number one, but number two, that, as I always say, it's not all one-to-one. Like, just because she can do it doesn't mean that all of the other factors are aligned in that moment. Like, yes, she's physically capable, but is she emotionally capable of doing this right now? Or is she mentally capable? Right.
Yeah.
And my daughter is just so articulate, and always has been, was able to like pronounce her THs like from the get-go, like she's always been, the way she holds herself and the way she talks, it's been hard for me to see how little she is.
Yeah.
But,
And she's tall too.
and
So
she's
it's
tall.
like
She's
you
always been
forget,
tall.
like
Yes. Yes. Um, but the thing that you said on, I don't remember, a couple episodes ago about Sam, um, making that decision to just do whatever she asked as soon as she asked it,
Mhm.
um, really hit home with me. It really struck a chord and has stayed with me. And I've been, well, I don't remember when I started. It may have been right after that, but I started doing that and realized how much more spaciousness I feel in myself when I consciously make the choice not to say no. Because no, for me, I realized in the process of doing this that no is my control. No is my self-preservation. No is like, don't get in my space. I'm doing, you know, like it's me in like low energy,
like a wall to me.
trauma.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like a trauma response. It's like somebody's asking something of me and demanding me give them my energy, but it's my energy. You can't have it, you know? And it's like totally, I just didn't realize I mean, I knew it wasn't great, but I didn't realize exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately feel more spaciousness, and I feel like the softness stays between us. And then her responses and her requests of me are so much gentler and nicer. And if she tells me to do something versus like asking, hey mama, can you do this for me? Or, you know, if she gets into that like catty, entitled kind of tone or whatever, I just look at her and she's like, mama, can I have this please? You know, like, I don't even have to say anything. And it's just where it's like, she's learning, oh, mama is going to help me. Cause that's really what it is needing to know that she's cared for and not alone, and knowing that I'm here to support her. And that's a really big way for me to do it that I haven't been able to latch onto in the past, I think. And so I've been super grateful for that, and realizing also, I don't know if you mentioned this in the podcast, but your friend who figured out ways to not say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been playing with that, because there are some times where I can't do it right now. And I would have just said, hang on a sec. And instead I'll say, yeah, I'll be right there. And so then I still have that moment to like,
it just changes the whole thing.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because if I say yes instead of no, even if I don't come right away, half the time she's like, oh, I did it. I figured it out. I got it myself.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know. And oh my God, it feels so nice.
I've been trying to do that too since we had that conversation, just trying to not be the no mom or whatever. And so I've been doing that a lot. Like I will in just a moment, you know, like I just trying to make the first word like, yes, I will do that. And whatever comes after, whatever, but I'm just going to say yes. Because it really is challenging for me, because like you were saying, like it feels like it's sucking all this energy. And then the other thing too, is that like, I've been having this realization for the last year of, this part of it's like part of the mother archetype for me is like an unwell mother, because my mom was, she still is very, I don't know, she's not like sickly. Like everybody used to call her a hypochondriac. I don't think she's a hypochondriac. I think she's a really sensitive person, and she feels a lot in her body. And she's always gotten migraines, especially, but anything that goes out there, like any sickness, like she gets it, whatever. She's just, you know, she just had this year, like 3 surgeries, you know, like there's just so much. So she was always missing work, because she was sick. There was never a day that like she missed work so that we could go do something, or missed work for any other reason other than, and like she wouldn't miss work to like take me to a basketball game or to take me to the dentist or whatever. It was like she would drop me off at the dentist, go back to work, come back and pick me up, take, you know, like this whole thing. And so it was just, and I was like a caretaker for her, and I would make her like these little cups with pennies in them, and she'd ring the cup, and I'd come and bring her food or whatever. And this whole thing. And I just really been thinking about that, like how I have kind of become that archetype in my mind of a mom, not because I'm sick or anything, but just my energy level. Like it really got heavy last year, because all last summer I was just so tired. And I mean, I had a miscarriage last summer, so that was part of it, but also just all this energy changing and just this planetary stuff. It really took a toll on my my physical body, and I just got really exhausted all the time. And so I'm trying really hard to like get out of that pattern and not let and then now I'm pregnant. So I am just like sleeping like half the day. And so I really have to just, I've started this last couple of weeks, just, I get up in the morning and I just I don't let myself lay down and like, because I know if I get on that couch and lay down or go to the bed, like I'm not getting back up. And so I just get up and try to do what I can and just make a whole bunch of snacks for my daughter and just get everything all lined out. So at least I can just say like, if I need to take a nap, like there's food on the table or whatever. But it's been a real challenge for me to like see myself as that mother archetype that I have in my mind of like the sick mom, and to know it's not true, that I'm not a sick mom, but that I'm in my way playing that role or whatever. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. And already my daughter is like, oh, are you tired, mama? And it's like, I don't want to be that mom. Like, I just don't want to be that person. But I also like, I am also a sensitive person. And so a lot of the ways that the world affects me is through my energy. And I have extreme amounts of energy or I have no energy. Like there's not like any kind of, I still haven't figured out that flow. And anything that happens in my life or in the world, really, it requires a lot of energy for me to deal with. And so I really just have to, and I mean, one way I shifted and have been able to get this far in the last 4 years in my life is that I just basically cut off all social things. I don't spend the time on the internet. Like I can't do any of it because it's all just energetic sucks for me. And like, I definitely can't like go to the news and all that shit because it's just more emotional stuff that I have to deal with that just takes more of my energy. And I just can't, like, I can't do it. And yeah, so that's been an interesting realization for me. And I really do not like it at all. And so I don't, I'm trying to shift that. But another thing that I've realized in this last year that I've been kind of realizing that at the same time is that when people talk about their shadow self, they're usually talking about, or most people I know are talking about like, I mean, the shadow is just the unmanifested, right? But most people are talking about like the negative aspect, like their dark side, is what they call it, or like the parts of themselves they don't like. And what I've realized lately is that my shadow isn't actually the same as other people's shadows, because I'm that way all the time. Like I deal with like my own shit, my own bad attitude, my own irritation, and just like having a shitty attitude all the time. But what I'm realizing is my shadow is actually the joy and the energy and like the happiness. Like that's all the stuff that's unmanifested or like living in the darkness for me. So it's like flip-flopped for most other people in that, everybody who's in my daily life has to deal with my shadow. I deal with my shadow, or what would be called my shadow, like my bad attitude or whatever, the negative aspects of me all the time. But not very often does my family or myself get to experience like my joy. And so I've also been trying to cultivate that at the same time. Like, how can I be my shadow? what's the unmanifested? How can I be all of that and not, live this grouchy, bedridden, sick mama archetype?
Well, that's interesting because I mean, I feel like maybe it's just a different way of framing the understanding, because I feel like for most people that the shadow is what blocks the joy. So it's not that the joy is the shadow, but it's like that you're grouchy, crappy, whatever thing that you're dealing with all the time, like that even though it's on the surface, it's not, the underlying aspect of it is what is blocking the expression of the joy and the
right
love and happiness. I hear you about the unwell mother thing. I don't even know where that came from. I had a friend, so I went to Alaska when I was like 20 or 21, 20, with a lifetime friend, whole big family friend unit thing. They went to visit their family and I went with them, and we were all hanging out on this cabin porch one evening. And for whatever reason, this woman mentioned to me, it was my friend's mom. She mentioned to me that my mom had had postpartum depression when she had me. And I was like, she did? I didn't know that. And I carried that with me for so long. And I asked my mom, I don't remember if I asked her before I got pregnant or after my daughter was born, but she was like, oh, no, I didn't. I don't know why she said that. But it was as if it like planted the seed of like postpartum depression. And when I didn't have a midwife, but I interviewed a bunch of midwives and I asked all of them about postpartum depression. And it was something that I'd remembered reading, like in all the home birth books and stuff about that, home birth reduces the risk of postpartum depression. And so I was like asking these midwives about it. And one of them asked me, are you at risk for postpartum depression? I was like, oh, I don't know. But it was just such a weird thing that for whatever reason, because the birth didn't go how I wanted it to, and I felt really terrible about it. It was like, I just was like, well, I'm depressed. I'm supposed to be depressed now. I have postpartum depression. And I just like took it on. It's like, I'll pick that outfit out of the closet and put that on and never take it off.
Yeah.
And so then it just, the more you wear it, the comfier it gets, the more used to it you are. You're like, oh, well, this is really nice. I don't actually,
it's kind of
want to change clothes. Yeah. And so totally, it's like, I just took on this like mega victim narrative for myself as a mom. And I had, certain external circumstances with my daughter that, were easy to use for that purpose. She definitely had some stuff going on that was hard to deal with, but it was like just totally a choice, and it totally didn't have to go like that. So I feel you on like saying, actually, I don't need to be like this. Like, actually, I could just be happy. And I'm mega, I'm really in a place of mega. I don't know why I'm saying mega. I'm super in a place now of being greater than my environment. I'm really, really into that. And it feels so good. And I feel so crazy powerful when I can do things. And I think I'm greater than my environment right now. Like, I don't have to be affected by this, and I'm not affected by this. I'm actually not affected by this. And, I do ice baths, and I've started doing them again here in the ocean. And it's funny because I would always get into like fight or flight and get nervous about it. And I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to go do it. And I do it, and I'll be in the water. And sometimes I'm shivering and I can't get control, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm fine. And it's this totally different mental state around like knowing that from the inside out, I'm fine. And like, I'm really fine. And that none of this matters. Like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. I go through that in different ways. Like the postpartum thing, it's interesting because in this course I'm taking with Rochelle Garcia Saliga, she says, postpartum depression doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because it's a natural response to a fucked up system. Like, that's it. Like, if you have postpartum depression, it's because you were like victimized or because you're whatever. Like, it doesn't exist though. Like, it's a natural response to like feel, sad because somebody ripped your baby away or, you didn't go through that, but like that, whatever happens, that's not this natural process that your body remembers, like your body knows. So like when there's any kind of fracture, she's like, it's a natural response to be, to feel whatever you feel. It's a natural response. And so, I never had any of that or had any thoughts about postpartum depression or whatever, but man, after I gave birth to my daughter, I was so fucking angry, like for years after that, like for 2 years at least, until I quit breastfeeding. And then when I stopped breastfeeding when she was 2, things started to change or whatever, but I felt no like connection to my kid. I felt I loved her, but I didn't feel like a heart thing. And it was really amazing when I stopped breastfeeding her, because then we started like cuddling, and like I got to cultivate other parts of a relationship, because the only way that she was physically connected with me was like sucking the life out of my tits or like crawling on me. It was just like, and I'm really sensitive to touch. So it was just really just aggravating all the time. So I was just angry. There's like these pictures of me breastfeeding where I just have the worst look on my face. And those are kind of the mental, that's kind of the mental atmosphere that I've been, or the mental landscape or whatever that I've been dealing with again lately, like this last month, is that getting like having those kind of thoughts take hold of me again that I haven't experienced, you know, in at least 2 years or whatever. And just associating them with that time after I had her, and just just so much anger, and just like it's just like this dark, it's just dark. It's like somebody just dumped a pan of black paint on my, over my whole mind, whatever environment. And it just doesn't, I don't want to, like, I don't want to be that. And that was one thing Ann Nortley said in her show last week. She's like, this is all stuff that the universe is like, okay, we're moving forward, but here's some other stuff for you to look at to make sure you want to move forward, because you can always go back to that. And I mean, that was one of the things before I listened to her podcast, I was doing my meditation and I just like broke out into this like spontaneous prayer. And I was like, I can't be this person. I cannot be this person. I don't want to be this person. I will not go back to being this person. I would rather die than be that person. Like, I am not going back. Like, I was very adamant, and I was just like crying and just like praying, like, I can't be this person. Like, you have to help me. Like, you have to help me. I can't do this on my own. You have to help me. Like, you know, God, universe, whatever, like whoever's out there, you have to fucking help me, you know? And that's when I got like this huge breakthrough of like feeling like it lifting off finally of me. And yeah, it's just like, I just don't, I don't want to be that person. And it's interesting because my partner's kind of going through the same thing. Like, he's having these, you know, like negative mind patterns that he used to have or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, you have to make a choice. Like, you can go back to being that person, or you can be a new person, but like, I'm not going back. So like, if you want to go back, like, I'm not going back. I'm just going forward. I'm not going to be that person ever again. And yeah, it's brought up a little bit of like me having that mental pattern has brought up, you know, a little bit of like, just a little bit of fear about, okay, when I have this next baby, am I going to like get back into that because I'm going to be breastfeeding again and doing all that stuff? And it's like, no, I'm not going to, whatever it takes, I am not going back there. I don't care if I have to be on my knees 18 hours a day praying to God to save me or whatever. I am not going back to that mental pattern. I'm just not going to do it. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm not going to be that mom. Like, I'm very clear about that. I'm not going back. Yeah, it's just,
You know, I didn't listen to Ann Ortley's. Okay, so chronology for me. Last week, yeah, I actually thought last week about listening. I don't know. I think I thought about listening like right away or maybe later in the week, but I was having a hell of a week, and so I guess it was the energies. But I totally had the same kind of experience. I went from like, I was high as a kite like 2 Thursdays ago, and Thursday and Friday I was like, oh my God, everything is amazing. I'm creating my future. And I was like living in like a semi-mystical experience for like 24 hours, and it was really awesome. And it's just like, I could tune into that like in a moment's notice. And then the weekend wore on, and by like the end of Monday, I was like, what the fuck? and the next, it was just, oh my God, it was like the longest week of my life. Like, the minutes were hours. It was so rough. I just got stuck in this thing, and I couldn't get myself out of it. And I was dumping out all my toolboxes and pulling all my tools and doing everything and meditating like crazy and taking time to myself and just everything I could do. And nothing was like really getting in there and shifting. And finally on, I think it was maybe Thursday night, I was like, I put my daughter to bed, and I got up. Sometimes I'll kind of like relax and fall asleep and then get up. But I was like wide awake, and I was clear as day, full conviction, like I'm getting out of this bed, I'm going up to my loft, and I am meditating, and I'm getting rid of this shit. I'm so done with this. And so I went up and I did this meditation that has this breathing practice ahead of time, and I was just, I had such conviction doing this practice. I was like, I am drawing all of that energy out of my lower centers, and I'm not letting any of it stay. I just was so clear with it. And after that, things shifted, and I was able to have a lot more space around it. And then was able to talk to a friend of mine on Friday. And then by Saturday, I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. Like, I got this.
Yeah, I
can
got the wheel now.
Yeah. But it was just like, I was like, totally. I was so aware that what was happening was that I had created the circumstances for all of my shit in this one area of my life to come to the surface and be massively triggered. And so I was like super grateful while it was happening, because I was aware. I was like, okay, cool. I want to get all this stuff out. I want all this stuff to be done. Like, I don't want to be feeling these things, because I've been feeling these things for 34 years and I'm kind of done feeling like this. And that was a really cool awareness too, to recognize, like, this is what I know as me. This is how I have felt for my entire life. And I don't actually want to go forward feeling like this. So in order to not go forward not feeling like this, I don't have to fix things. I don't have to fix me. I just have to let go of feeling like this. I have to let go of the patterns inside of me that create this response, because I don't want to feel like this in my future. I want to feel abundance, expansiveness, joy, love, like presence, confidence, knowing that I am connected to source at all times and all ways across time, space, dimensions, everything like that. The solidness in myself. And so, yeah, it was really big week.
Yeah. I love that I'm not the only one experiencing these things. And I know if we're experiencing it, that there's so many other people out there who are experiencing the similar things. And yeah, I had made a commitment to myself for a while, since like January, that I wasn't going to listen to Ann Ortley's podcast, because I was just like, no, I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to like take things as they come or whatever. I'm so glad I listened to it this week too, but I'm like, it just is so helpful to know like what might be coming, and that, so that if something comes up, I can be like, oh, okay, like this is this planet moving into this area or whatever, and it's not just me, because it's easy to get in that whole thing of like, I'm a messed up person and here I go again, and just like get stuck in your own poop hole, and just like, life sucks and this is where I live, is in this composting toilet all by myself. Yeah. So
well, I find with her that when I don't want to listen to her, I mean, I kind of got over it for a while, but then when I thought about listening to her last week, what I realized is that when I am too attached to my experience in this life, like too attached to potential outcomes, I can't listen, because what I'll get into this like paranoid freak out loop where I'm like, well, this is what's going to happen. So what if it happens on this, and then I'll like try to plan, because then that's the stress response, right? So I'm taking what I know and trying to predict my future so that I can be prepared for it. Yeah. And I knew that wasn't going to be helpful given the circumstances of my life at that time. And I'm still in that space, and it's probably going to be for a little bit, but
I like to listen to her at the end of the week, for like the week before. It's like, okay, that all makes sense. So it's like wrapping things up.
Yeah. Even that though, I do that a lot, but even that, if I'm too attached, I'll look back and I'll go, I did something wrong because on that day, I should have been more aware.
I was thinking about my sister-in-law today, because I was listening, and she was, Ann Ortley was saying that Thursday would be a great day to go out and meet somebody new or whatever. And, I like sisters all trying to like date somebody or whatever, or like find a boyfriend or whatever. And I was thinking I should like send this to her and be like, go out on Thursday. You're going to meet your love of your life. But I didn't want to put that pressure on her. Be like out there, just be like sending her pheromones to the world on Thursday. Yeah.
This Thursday?
this coming Thursday. Yeah. So you can go out there and send your pheromones out. Maybe you'll meet somebody.
That's the worst. That was what always got me when she was like, Venus is doing this week. And, and like Wednesday would be a good day to go out and, or, you know, pay attention to who you meet on Wednesday. And I would like go nowhere and not leave my house because I had nothing to do and nowhere to go. And I was like, damn it, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of the house?
Bumble around outside.
Like bump into my neighbors who I all know and know.
Yeah.
It's like maybe another UPS guy will show up.
I'll order some more packages. Well, I think this has been a good long podcast, and so I think we should end here. So for those of you listening, make sure to share this with your friends and family. And I just realized that if you go to anchor.fm to our podcast, you can leave us a message. I don't know how you do that, but if you can figure that out and you want to leave us a nice message, you can leave us a nice message. If you don't have a nice message, well, fuck off. But you don't leave us a message. But so thank you for joining us for this conversation between women, and we'll see you next month.